It's time to spread my silk all over this game while singing appraisals for it, because after a 7-year cock tease, Hollow Knight SILKSONG has finally come. And so have I. All over it. Seriously though, I was not trapped on a hype train since I'm mostly immune to that kind of thing after being burned several times. So even though this exceeded my realistic expectations, I'm not going to be blinded by nostalgia or hype when I discuss what I liked and didn't like about it. That said, this is a boss ranking, so as always, gonna be ranking them in tiers from awful up to amazing, and all the in-between tiers. Keep in mind this is a huge Metroidvania, so experiences will wildly differ based on when you encountered a specific foe and with what equipment. Also, I excluded some less notable mini-bosses from the list, so don't worry about them. First up on the chopping block as we start from bottom up, Groal the Great, or rather, the run back to Groal the Great, who is an awful experience start to finish. Get your running shoes ready, because runbacks are going to be a recurring topic in this video, unfortunately, as it's my main complaint for the entirety of the game. In this case, if you don't find the extremely hidden bench that's covered up by poisonous water that you're incentivized to stay out of, as well as a breakable wall, you're going to have to run through the entire length of the zone. And it's not a quick or straight path in the slightest. Even with the secret checkpoint, it's still a decently long hike, and once you do get to the boss room, you have to clear out an enemy gauntlet that has 5 waves. Not helped by the arena itself having limited space, poison water that will eat up a heal from you, and the enemies being annoying and evasive. And you have to kill them every single time you try the boss. I guess the point is to be a test of endurance, but as I'm running back time and time again, retreading the familiar road with no variables to make the run interesting, I start to become very aware of how much my time is being wasted, with zero benefit to it. I don't play games to waste time. I play games to put the time I have to good use. This isn't it! And then Groal himself appears and it's fucking obnoxious with his fat floaty body bopping up and down, making pogoing on his head or hiding underneath an unsafe strategy as he can quickly change direction and do body contact damage. Double damage, I may add. Those elements combined with the boss constantly trying to suck you in, it's hard to find safe footing besides the corners of the arena, where you may just have to wait for a while until you get a safe enough opportunity to attack. With the upgrades I had, it was a long and tedious fight, and I could not focus on enjoying anything as the only thing on my mind was, please don't make me do the run-up again. Is the boss itself one of the worst ever? No. Is the gauntlet one of the worst ever? Also no. Is the zone you have to repeat bad? Not at all. Yet, those 3 put together, it was the least fun I've had playing any game in years. So design aside, the complete void of enjoyment makes me have to put it in the awful tier. Number 39, Zango isn't as grueling of an experience, but I'm mystified by the plasmified design. This is a DPS race, as the boss gradually heals himself, albeit without any indication of the damage you're dealing, besides having the boss slide across the floor when he's a little more injured. If you have the tool for the Plasmium collecting quest, you'll undoubtedly win the race, but I had already completed it by the time I found Zango, and so I didn't have it. You could have avoided that issue altogether by just letting the player keep the tool. Why not? Doing it the old-fashioned way sucks. By the end of it, my fingers were in agony as a result of the necessary spam. Not as mentally exhausting as Groal, but this one I can't see even masochists enjoying. Maybe they'll have a better time with Savage Beastfly, but I did not. I'm discounting the first one you can encounter as it's the same fight, but a little less shitty. This one is more notable for the inclusion of breakable platforms, lava, and the flying termites. Double damage stacked on top of double damage, and then more double damage, is the only way they could make this a threat to the players, as the Savage Beastfly doesn't otherwise differ much from the easiest regular enemies found all throughout Farloom. Boss attacks do double damage, touching the boss does double damage, falling in the lava does double damage, then the additional enemies do double damage. And then in the end you have double damaging flying cocksuckers at the same time, along with the double damaging boss, in the double damaging arena. I don't think this combination makes for the least bit fair fight, as the variables created by constantly flying projectiles that also linger and detonate on the sometimes sparse ground, as well as the fat turd of a boss, can result in scenarios where I genuinely don't know if it's physically possible for me to have avoided damage. Maybe if I had superhuman reflexes, but I don't! Now sure, there is a charm that lessens fire damage by 1, and that's nice, but the fundamental problem persists. Termites and the Beastfly are a bad combo. This boss can get double fucked. And we're done with the awful bosses as we move on to number 37, Skull Tyrant, who isn't really offensive in any way, but just extraordinarily bare bones. I did die once in a moment of extreme skull issue, and it did make me consider if maybe double damage was a mistake. I feel early on it can result in some really unfortunate quick deaths, but from Act 2 onwards I never really felt that way again. All this boss does is run back and forth, stomp around a little to drop boulders in a very telegraphed and unthreatening manner, and then repeats those two moves 10,000 times until he eventually dies. I was sure I was missing a gimmick as it took so long and had no moveset changes or anything to indicate progress, but no, that was all there was to it. Until it came back to rampage through Bone Bottom and kill my little friend. That was a shocking moment, but it's just the same fight again with less health. I would have been much happier never doing this quest, never having to waste time on a boring boss, and keeping my pilgrim buddy alive. But with that, we're cutting the bad tier short, as I believe number 36, Pinstress, is mediocre, not bad. However, I hate this boss, viciously. It is so fucking annoying with her constantly flying out of reach, doing primal aspect attacks non-stop, because yeah, we all loved those enemies, didn't we? And all too often falling off the mountain when I get my well-earned stagger. Get back here, you bitch! Her only good move, the cross slash, isn't even unique to her, so you're not gonna miss out on much by just not doing this. The reason I don't think it's bad is just the fact that she moves a lot and can trick you by sometimes doing extra follow-ups. I could see someone enjoying it, but I very much doubt anyone's enjoying having to hear the broodmother give birth. This ugly chicken, as well as Fluke Mom, have convinced me to turn to antinatalism and stop all childbirth. Kill all babies! She also seems to have learned a move from yet another mom, Gru's mother. She's still a step up from Fluke Mom, however, as her spawns are easy one-hit kills, aren't as frequent as the Flukes, and work well enough with her other attacks. There's nothing bullshit in this fight, it's just nasty and unnoteworthy. On the contrary, Pale Stag is aesthetically pleasing, but unfortunately, most runbacks in the game pale in comparison to how bad this one is. Made all the worse by the enemies in Verdania being able to chase you to the ends of the earth. You're going to have to be just as persistent as them when you run after the evasive Pale Stag, who has but one attack, spinning boomerangs that thankfully don't come back after being thrown. How can a single attack boss be better than the previous entries, you might wonder? Well, that one attack is pretty good, especially when towards the end the boomerangs take up a lot of space in the room and you have to do some proper acrobatics to survive, which does combo fairly well with having to stay on the move to chase the boss. It's just unfortunate that dying sours the whole experience. But hey, most probably aren't as bad as me as to die to this. But not even I could muster up the lack of skill to die to Gur the Outcast. I will say it was kind of cool to turn from the hunter into the hunted, and it was thematically very appropriate, as was his little display of trophies. And sure, it also makes sense for him to utilize traps in his fight against you, but that's about all he does, other than his funny looking slide. Him tossing the traps around isn't really a direct attack, they're rarely ever aimed anywhere near you, and it leaves him very open for spanking. Only threat is if they block you from being able to jump over the funny slide, but that's entirely up to RNG. Only ever happened once to me. And let's not even talk about the ground spikes, I don't know what the fuck their point is. No pun intended. It's so forgettable that let's pretend he's not even on the list, and that number 33 is instead Voltworm. It's totally not because I miscounted the number of bosses and I'm too lazy to change it. No, not at all. But this one is hardly a boss, and more of a brief environmental hazard. But at least it looks neat and is pretty fast-paced, so it's not boring. It's just stupid easy again for how late in the game it appears. Not that I miss Savage Beastfly or Groal, no, they can stay in hell. The nice thing about Voltworm, I suppose, is that even though it's just a pile of eggs or something,
looks like eggs,
it still moves around, so it's not too static of a fight. Number 32, Father of the Flame can't be spelled without saying fat and lame. However, I personally didn't really have any daddy issues here, even though I do recognize that had I died, it would have been a long hike. Which is a real concern when you can't build up silk to heal by striking the boss. But I think it is at least fairly unique and looks really cool, and some of the acrobatics you can execute can be pretty satisfying. It's certainly not Bed of Chaos tier like I've seen many proclaim, but maybe I'm just a weird tree hugger, I don't know. Now with that, Mediocre tier has been dealt with and we can move on to greener pastures. Quite literally, as number 31 is Moss Mother. While very reminiscent of Gru's mother, I think this is a much better intro boss and does what it needs to do. I've ranked a lot of tutorial bosses and they usually either very softly ease you into the game or make you go through trial by fire where you're kind of forced to get a grasp of the combat. This one is definitely on the kinder side, but it's at least a little more engaging than most of the dickless intro fights with the inclusion of additional enemies, so there's a little more multi-managing you have to do. You'll certainly need that skill going up against
the Unraveled.
This game loves enemy gauntlets.
They are our proudest achievement.
to the point that sometimes they just feel so unnecessary and out of place, and this is the most egregious example. It's not even a bad gauntlet, it's easy and quick enough that it's not the type that makes me feel like my time is being wasted when I have to redo it, but it just feels completely disconnected from the boss. It doesn't feel like one has anything to do with the other. It's just filler before and in the middle of the fight. I think this moment would have been more effective had the boss just emerged from the background without the initial group of enemies, which kinda removes the creep factor and just puts you in combat mind. The boss is okay, you have to quickly react to the projectiles as their pattern is random, the charge is really quick to start, and I like the rising and falling spears.
We strongly believe fun is at the heart of a good game.
29, Watcher at the Edge kept me on edge with his insane fucking running speed. Holy shit, you cannot outrun this guy to heal. And that was surprising, shocking even. It's especially scary for his double damage as well as decent range on each attack. The quietness, isolation, and the sound effects made this have kind of neat atmosphere to boot too, but you know, it is a very standard affair mini-boss moveset-wise. Dodge back, dodge forward, that's pretty much all you need to do. It's just the jump scare run that makes me want to put it above some actual bosses. Is the disgraced Chef Lugoli an actual boss? No idea, but the fact that I have to ask that means it's better than the edging Watcher. Like the Unraveled, she's preceded by some enemies you have to kill each time, but I won't complain as it's so brief and so easy, and it at least made me appreciate the bonkers enemy variety of SILKSONG. As far as I know, these guys only ever appear in this one segment, and they certainly wouldn't be alone in being one-off enemies. They're everywhere, and I would not be surprised if there still remain some that I just haven't found yet. The Master Chef reminds me a bit of the Paint Master boss in Hollow Knight, with little balls following melee attacks that are very easy to dodge, although for whatever reason I had a real bad time with the diving attack. I genuinely can't tell why it was so difficult, and I know it shouldn't be, but I'm so skilled at being bad that I found a way to struggle all the same. I also got slapped by her enormous ass a lot, as it's quite a bit of mass to jump over, but I won't complain. Despite my plentiful struggles, I would say the slime balls bouncing around from the walls is a good addition to making a simple fight keep your spatial awareness in mind. So good job, Lugoli. It seems in the end you did cook. But on the topic of fat fucks, we have Crowfather at number 27, which I'm sure is far too high for many. And I should be in agreement, I should abhor this boss considering I hate those flying knife-throwing craws. And this is a fight entirely centered on endless enemy waves, including them and many others, with the first few waves taking place before Crowfather himself joins the fray, but still continuing with him. But I find that the combination of the boss's moves with the little craws actually had decent synergy, and I liked how frantic it felt. Each move leaves him very open for a punish, and on their own the attacks aren't a threat, so the enemies feel very much in place. There are next to no moments of downtime, and the only times you aren't hacking away at the boss are when you're doing crowd control, or crowd control. Ha 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 ha. Especially as the fight went on, I started to feel this adrenaline rush from cutting down craw after craw and slashing away at the Big Daddy, and it was exciting. As opposed to
The Unraveled,
where the enemies felt unrelated, this boss wholly embraces it, and with the magnificence of SILKSONG's combat that's well suited for ganks, it's just fun.
we strongly believe fun is at the heart of a good game.
Number 26, Lost Garment, is ironically enough the only version of this fight that I found, but luckily it doesn't seem I missed out on anything as the found garment looks mostly the same, just way easier. This one has more story impact too, as Garment's companion and mount leads us to him, now corrupted out of his mind, and stays behind with him as he's put out of his misery. It's like a loyal dog. Cute, but sad. Like many enemies infected by the Abyss, he's equipped with extra projectiles and area denials, which complement his rudimentary fencing attacks quite well. It doesn't feel particularly special, as the Abyss abilities do quickly become very familiar in this third act, but it works. For the record, I also missed out on the friendly duel against Chakra, who looks like another standard but fun enough fight. Number 25, Nihilith, is not at all standard, but still doesn't get past being just decent, as her unique gimmick of no flaw in phase 2 doesn't amount to much of a challenge at all. In fact, when she did have a flaw, I found dodging her spewing attack harder, as the platform puts you a fair bit closer to her, so there's less time to react. Being able to turn the spike balls against her is cool, but I found that, especially in phase 2, it wasn't really worth the effort to try to launch them at her. Most of the time they would just hit another ball instead of her, or get me hurt in the process. They're never gonna hit me if I just stay on the wall, which is easy to do with the Ascendant's Grip charm that lets you cling indefinitely to a wall, And with that, the act of platforming here really wasn't that. It was just waiting patiently for her to come over so I could pogo on her head until it was time to go. It was something different for sure, and I died a few times trying to adjust to the odd circumstance, but once I got it, I was left with a feeling of, cute, but is that it? 24 4th chorus is more like, snorers. As cool as the presentation is, I was very let down by the lackluster mechanics when, at this point in the game, it felt like it was about time to crank things up a bit. If you have a boss with a whopping 3 attacks, I expect there to be some strong overlapping moves or fast-paced flow. Neither is at its best here. The falling debris does overlap, but only at the tail end of the move as Chorus is stuck in a long animation while summoning them, and the destruction of the platforms does limit how you can dodge the swipes, but Glide lets you easily avoid them while staying in place, so it just removes other equally as easy evasion options. I was excited when the air currents came into play, and I was sure shit was gonna heat up now and you'd have to use them to dodge. But no, they're just there so you can fly up and give a flashy execution on the boss. It's enjoyable, but the miss and potential burned me more than the lava up my asshole. There never was much going for Moss Mother though, so on the contrary, I was pleasantly surprised to see a fairly intense fight with the mommy duo. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to overlapping mechanics. And these two don't even have 3 attacks, both only have 2. A slow charge and another falling debris move, although sometimes instead of rocks it's little bugs. We're in a very confined space here, so any extra enemies is trouble, so while having to keep an eye on the boss, shit falling from above, you're also gonna have to consistently clean the room. Moss Mother on its own has huge gaps in activity, so the simple act of duplication ends up filling all of it. Not gonna go and call it a great fight as just a tutorial boss, but 2 of them, but that did also make it twice as fun.
We strongly believe fun.
Shut up! Number 22, Bell Beast comes shortly after Moss Mother, the single mom, and makes it abundantly clear to you that double damage is here to stay, and bosses will utilize it. Buckle up, bitch! Along with the damage being more punishing, jumping over the boss is also a little harder with the bigger size of the beast. The windows of opportunity to hit the boss are more limited, and the falling debris this time rolls around and bounces, so it feels like a good follow-up to the tutorial fight in just about every way. I even managed to die once as a result of my failure to pay attention to the surroundings, and then again on steal mode for the same reason. Guess I didn't learn. The sound of the bells falling is probably the best thing about the whole fight. That or the cuteness factor. It's kind of impressive that they made it subtly kind of puppy-like with the animations, which has to be intentional considering the Bell Beast becomes a frequent companion from this moment onwards. Now how about you guys be Bell Beast and ring that notification bell? Flying in at number 21 are the Great Cockflies, and if you're sad we're still in the decent tier, which is the middle tier of the rating system, let me be clear. I like all of these decent bosses. They're closer to good than they are mediocre tier. It's just that they're either a little too simple or too easy or a miss in potential. And the double cockflies are all 3, even though they are enjoyable as well. I did very much like the synchronized gank design, but that hardly mattered when the other one would never even come close to targeting me. When they spit out little cocks, they could have had those combo better with the burrowing moves too, but they tend to disappear before that. Thankfully, the synced up duo boss idea would eventually meet its full potential. Just not here, not yet. But in case you were getting sick of the decent tier, worry not, as Sister Splinter is its finale. Instead of a synced up gank, this one is big boss plus little minions, which isn't as novel of an idea, but works better here than in, well, other cases. One strong reason for that is how the boss often clears up the enemies for you, and even when she doesn't, they never created scenarios where I felt taking damage was inevitable. Also, an interesting wrinkle in the fight is the spiky branches limiting your space. One of the bigger oh fuck moments in any boss fight was when the whole room was suddenly covered in them and I had to hurry the hell up and clear them out before the boss would resurface. I kinda panicked and just got spiked as a result. Her attacks are fast and dangerous and require dashing back and forth to evade, so the lack of space is a scary combination. So not a fight that's super enjoyable, but I appreciate the franticness. Now then, onwards and upwards to the top 20 in good tier and above. Beginning with the Bell Eater, which I was certain would be a low decent tier fight upon first beating, but the more I thought about it, the more I appreciated the unique design. Unlike the Bell Beast, this one is no puppy. It's red, it's long, spiky, and it shits blood. Literally, that is its asshole, it's pooping on you. With the massive length of the boss, it's cool how it uses its own body to create the edges of the arena, and if you get too close, the centipede-like legs will strike at you. At first, the edges are more closed in, as Bell Eater only does one attack at a time from either the face or ass, which will make you familiar enough with how to deal with both ends. Then the arena gets wider, so you have the necessary space to handle both at the same time. And the thing is, it's most of the time very easy to stay safe from their attacks, but the only way to damage the boss is when they're doing those attacks, so you have to get yourself in harm's way and find a way to position yourself carefully, unless you're using ranged attacks, I suppose. The position of either end is random, as is which of the two frontal attacks it does, so there's a fun element of RNG. I was desperately hoping that either as a gag or as a bug it would somehow do two ass attacks at the same time. The crawling above and below you is cool too, visually and in the way you have to stay airborne while dodging bells if the boss is crawling under you. I figured this was Bell Beast but corrupted, so that was a little bit of a downer, but then having the actual BB come in for the kill was a huge relief and a badass moment. Still, for an Act 3 boss, it's strange how much harder an early game boss like Morwing is, who is number 18. This was the first properly challenging boss, and it was a rough awakening. All its attacks shave off 2 masks from you, and when you have 5 masks like I did at the time, it's mean. The hardest part were the flying discs that sometimes would fly straight and other times weirdly arc mid-air, so that kinda messed with my little brain as I tried jumping the ones that I shouldn't, and didn't jump when I should've. The boss also counts on you trying to avoid these discs the most obvious way, by hiding under her, which she will very quickly capitalize on with swift claw strikes. So it feels there's some cohesion in the design, and I like that. The last judge, on the other hand, doesn't really have cohesion in her attacks, but each of them is individually fun, such as the fire spin that sends waves of fire you have to stand in between of, and move along with them a little bit, or the flail throw that explodes and then gets pulled back, which obviously kept fucking me up. As she is a towering figure, you can't just jump over her whenever you please, so extra attention needs to be on not letting her corner you, and when necessary, reposition yourself by dashing under her when she's airborne, or jump her charge attack. While I died considerably less to the judge, I did end up spending more time on her than Morwing thanks to a tediously long run back. By the way, I'm just assuming every boss I don't know the gender of is a she, because everyone in this game is female.
They put Hollow Knight in a red dress.
I've seen a lot of people really like this one a lot, but personally, I judge her good, not great. Number 16 is the four brothers Cygnus and Groan, which begins as a fun boss plus minions fight before turning into a fun off-sync boss plus boss. Both are a well-suited combo, as Cygnus only has ground attacks, while both the minions and Groan have throwable weapons, so they can be completely off-sync and still be both engaging and 100% fair. While it seems to make this a lot easier to just focus on one of them to end the gank quicker, I, as a clown should, juggled between the two, and as much as I fumbled it, it was a great time. Also, given that they're easy to pogo on top of, I like that their helmets nullify that strategy completely. When one of the brothers is down, a lava fall will occasionally split the room, which is a nice touch even if it doesn't quite fill the void left by the duetto. And Crust King Khan doesn't at all fill the void left by the cut content of the coral area. I am so upset by this because, man, the tiny bit of the coral tower we get is so fucking pretty. Aesthetically by far the best in either game, and the enemies are pretty fun and unique too, and it's all just for a poor man's Colosseum of Fools, crescendoed by one of the easiest main bosses in the game. I so desperately need them to come back to this zone for a DLC, because while Crust King Khan and his court of fishies is cool, it's not enough. The last round of coral enemies is kind of needlessly tied to the boss itself, but whatever. Anything to extend the time spent here, I suppose. As for he doesn't attack you directly, but rather summons little coral towers, at an increasingly fast pace. Although for me the biggest difficulty was him just suddenly running into me unexpectedly. I like the coral attacks, they look cool, the pace is really fun towards the end, but they do leave obvious gaps for healing opportunities for you, and there isn't much attack overlap to create unique combos. Okay, so before I reveal the next boss, I want you to take a deep breath. I know you're going to be upset, I know I'm in the minority for this take, but give me a chance to explain why number 14 is Grandmother Silk, the base final boss of the game. I've seen more people put her in S tier or amazing tier than not, so clearly I'm missing something here. I think she is extraordinarily cool, the music is great, the attacks on their own are all quite good, but I was shocked at how damn easy and one-note it was. I don't want to second try the final boss of the game. I second tried Bell Beast! It's kind of a diet radiance with vertical and horizontal spikes coming at you, and other spikes covering parts of the ground at times, so I'm quite well versed in her type of lady. And I think they kinda screwed up with the overlapping mechanics in Phase 2, where, again, spikes come up from below, and falling rocks make other parts of the arena inaccessible for a bit. But this barely changes how the fight proceeds for me, other than that sometimes I have to wait for the boss to come back in range of me. Both the horizontal and vertical spikes can be dodged just fine without ever needing to worry about the area denial. Same with the claw strike. The only combination that can sometimes be interesting is the ground spikes plus Silk judgment cut, and I find the flow has some bad downtimes where she's just kinda aura farming and letting me slap her around. So please, you guys let me know why you think she should be anything other than a high good tier boss. Number 13, Lace is good. No, it's great. No, good. Great. Good. I don't know! It's great early on when you first fight her with limited tools and movement abilities, but it's less special now that I've seen where they take her base moveset. She's this game's Hornet, a boss that's not about just learning to dodge each attack, but more of a back and forth reactive dance. She tends to assume different stances that look like they're going to manifest as attacks, only to cancel out of them and then do something else, or bait you into attacking her guard, which she will parry and counterattack. However, you can dodge the counterattack if you're really fast. The best way I could describe bosses of her type is that she's like a hunter boss in Bloodborne, while most other bosses are the beast and alien types. It feels like you are evenly matched, you both move around a lot, react to each other's moves, reposition constantly, and it's nice to have one of these early on in the game to set the precedent for others to come. Like Phantom, who is also good. But no, actually great. Or good. You know what, let's make a compromise. Lace is top of good tier, Phantom is bottom of great. There we go, the art of the deal, everybody. I felt stronger about Phantom at first, but looking back on it, man is it simple. It's almost identical to Hornet in its moveset, but gets way further with that bad girl Grimm-like energy, backed by a banger OST. Oh, I should mention, Lace's theme is fantastic too. And Phantom is great for a lot of the same reasons as her. Back and forth style shit, reaction checks with the parries, and all that goodness. Except she comes way later into the game and thus gets away with longer ranged attacks and a faster pace. This would be a good time to bring up what I value the most in Hollow Knight and SILKSONG bosses. Flow. Even more than overlapping mechanics, which would probably be number 2, and she doesn't really have those. But what she does have is endless flow of one attack leading to the next one, and if not, she's instead repositioning herself or teleporting. She doesn't just stop to aura farm, there's always something to react to, and I find that makes up for the simplicity and familiarity of her toolkit. Speaking of familiarity, the giant raging Cockfly is back with a vengeance after the other one fell in the previous battle. Turns out she's far better off without the partner, as this time she's far more precise in the confined space, she's faster, combos the ricochet cones better with other abilities, and even summons Littlecocks to barrage you. I never got to feel the joy of being double penetrated by the duo, so this far more challenging version was a lovely surprise. I really like how the attacks she combos with the Littlecocks are also random, so there's an element of unpredictability, which I felt was lacking in the earlier fight. The speed at which she can surface from opposite ends of the room doesn't at all make sense, but I again forgive it for the sake of flow. At number 10, we have the tribute boss to Seth Goldman, who got to design the character as he was battling cancer, before passing away shortly after. It's really sad, but it's also really sweet that Team Cherry fulfilled his dream of meeting them, and you know what? Seth was spitting when he said the boss looked really cool. It is really cool. Despite being presented as something of a mini-boss, he's more akin to Lace and Phantom in how he's agile, reactive, parries you, and has pretty much non-stop flow. I love how he can teleport to the location of where he throws the shield to, which he sometimes throws straight and other times lets bounce off the floor. Then he starts comboing that with his shield slam attack in phase 2, which he can repeat a random number of times before doing a finisher stab. Hollow Knight's boss design was never focused on combo mix-ups, so I was surprised to see them adapt that design here, and he's not alone in being elevated by it. So rest in peace, Seth, you're now forever part of one of the best games ever made. Trobbio is here to lighten the mood, and you gotta appreciate him for that. I find SILKSONG to be a little more serious and sad than Hollow Knight, which provided a lot of levity, even having a lot of colorful bosses. While we still have fleas and other comedic or wholesome characters here and there, few are as delightful as Trobbio, who puts on a show with fireworks and an upbeat catchy soundtrack. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention how he, ever the dramatic actor, pretends to be dead as he's defeated. While he doesn't have many tricks up his sleeves, the few he does count for a lot. His bombs bounce around fast before detonating horizontally or vertically, which you have to react fast to at times. The tornado spin is tough to avoid as it's rather persistent, and the fireworks coming in towards the end fits in perfectly. However, they end up contributing to the visual clutter in the refight, Tormented Trobbio, where he has succumbed to his emo phase. I wish I could say this version was a strict upgrade, but with the blinding effects obscuring attacks, it's got some moments of bullshit not present in his cheerier days. I do like the enhanced bombs, the trail along the tornado spin, and the extra danger of the fireworks on their own. It's just they don't always mesh together. Still, at its peak performance, the show with Trobbio is both uplifting and neat from a position check standpoint. Number 8 is a boss that most would probably count as a mini-boss and yet clears 99% of Hollow Knight's boss roster single-handedly, or dual-handedly, and that would be the second Sentinel. This and the rest of the bosses were great here, along with Trobbio. I kept swapping back and forth in their order, so don't get too hung up on who's ahead of who here. They're all great. This one most surprisingly, given its lackluster build-up and how we fight in just a random dingy tiny room. But to her credit, she uses that minimal space really well and even executes attacks by wall jumping. Can't think of many other bosses who do that. However, I can think of another boss who uses the cross slash, but I think it's better off with the second Sentinel as it mixes in perfectly as a potential follow-up to moves like stab and slash attack, or spin jump, both of which have multiple optional finishers. So we've got more mix-up majesty in a fight that was good enough to begin with due to the relentless aggression and a good variety of moves you have to jump, not jump, or keep well away from, as well as you can in the claustrophobic arena. Purely as a fight, I enjoy her more than any of the great tier bosses like Cogwork Dancers, but the presentation for the latter makes me feel too guilty not to place it higher. Frankly, the best thing about this encounter is the presentation, with a giant clock in the background, music that matches the tempo of the bosses, their animations that display an odd sense of romance that will make sense later, and the 4-phase structure, which is a first and a last. Kind of. I don't know what the fuck counts as a phase for the true end boss. First phase is a slow warm-up, although having fought the Cogflies, I didn't find it very necessary as this has the same idea of fully synchronized attacks. But phase 2 elevates it above that prototype concept when it increases the speed enough to be kind of thrilling. It's still very easy once you get the hang of it, especially as them getting steamy together provides ample time to heal. So what really piqued my interest was phase 3 where they get desynced. This is where the fight really shifts gears. I found it trickier to keep track of the telegraphs of both of them, and them taking quick turns makes the pacing even quicker, with each kind of filling each other's gaps. No pun intended, cause, you know, they're gay! After 3 stages of the battle, the 4th one was not at all anticipated, nor was the sad tone of it. It's not really a fight anymore as the singular dancer is helpless alone, and Team Cherry exploits that to make you feel guilty. You don't even know what for yet, but it's something that's sure to stick in your mind, which makes it brilliant foreshadowing for the lore you may uncover later on. So while the Cogwork Dancers are impressive, I wish they posed more of a threat, and I think number 6, Widow strikes a better balance of being a tough early game boss and a cool as fuck fight, elevated immensely by the music. While I would say Hollow Knight on the whole had more memorable highs in the OST, when SILKSONG reaches similar heights, man does it go high. Quite fittingly, it's string instruments only for this Weaver. And to add the Team Cherry on top, we have lots of satisfying bell sounds accompanying it, as they are her main form of attacking. She can weave together a nice variety of different combos, some bells falling straight, others slanted, and the fact the bells bounce around a little is what makes these combinations interesting, especially when they're slanted. She's also the first boss to have a surprise second phase, which amplifies the amount of slanted angle bells. But other than that, I feel a little let down that she forgoes some of her phase 1 moves, like the aerial charge or ground spikes. Maybe that would have been too much considering there's already quite a lot of discourse around the difficulty of the game, but I would have loved to have seen the Widow fully unleashed. Had that been the case, she could have found herself an amazing tier, which is up next. So at last, let us ascend to the highest peak of the game. Number 5, Lay's Refight. This is her fully unleashed, and you love to see it, especially as she was the introduction to this type of evenly matched duels, and so she's upgraded to be one again, but adjusted to your increased skill and movement abilities. Good luck finding moments of downtime in this one. You'll have better luck looking for the hidden Bilewater bench without searching it up. She starts the next attack almost as soon as she ends one. She has a couple extra moves, such as blades following her jump charges, follow-ups to charge, and an extra parry retaliation, so you never know which of the two she will respond with, keeping you even more on edge when your needles collide. Like I had said before, these even fights are special in SILKSONG, and they're my favorite types of fights, along with bosses who overlap mechanics. The only thing I have against her is that I kind of forgot some of her fight's unique qualities, like those follow-ups and after effects, because, spoiler alert, the final boss kinda overshadowed the previous Lay's encounters, and this being the lesser version now, it's not one I keep thinking about much, even though at the time I absolutely loved it. I think the Green Prince, or Clover Dancers, will remain special to me because this is the better version of Cogwork Dancers. I feel I've completely grinded that juvenile cock joke to oblivion, so I've refrained from using it again going forward. But Green Prince longs to grind someone else's cock, so much so he's somehow paired up with a spectre of him. This spectre can't be hit, which makes you have to put extra effort in your footwork instead of just waiting for either one of them to get in range. We're also in a tighter room, so each dance move has a lot more potential of getting in your way, and certain moves require super precision to dodge. Compare this to this, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. We also do away with any warm-up and it's straight into the turbo fast duo. Judgment Cut slices in 2 stages, and the Princess coming together is no longer a free heal window, but a dangerous attack that requires more acrobatics than just about any other ability in the game. And of course the second phase is just an improved version of what was my favorite part of the Cogwork fight, them being desynced. It is extremely satisfying to me, and I very much despise Team Cherry for having such a shit run back again. The Clover Lovers isn't as unique in its presentation as the original version, but with the story being paid off and the fight finally giving me that adrenaline rush I was hoping for from them, I think it is amazing. Well, speaking of adrenaline rush, number 3 is First Sinner, and I personally think she is far better than any Hollow Knight boss, DLCs included, and it really shows how Team Cherry has advanced. And you all know how much I love Pure Vessel, so this isn't a diss, it's just a compliment to SILKSONG for going even further. I've mentioned a few times how much I like overlapping mechanics merchants, and First Sinner is the richest among them, oh my lord. As she is another weaver, she shares some reminiscent moves, as well as noises and music with Widow, but instead of bells she utilizes flying needles, like Grandma Silk, but far better, and so much faster. They come from above, from the sides, and cross-cut, and they can combo with the Sinner doing a couple different melee attacks, little explosions, or an attempt to heal. It's random, but every combination you can get is fucking awesome. It's easy to stand in the middle of the needles, but not so much when the boss urges you to move to her with the heal, or back away from her claws, and some of the dodges I did in tandem with the needles and the explosions made me audibly gasp. The constant teleporting adds so much movement to the battle, and while I kinda wish she had her own theme, can't lie the fast tempo does match excellently. I was a little sad that I ended our fight too soon after first meeting, but I also don't feel like she's too easy given how relentless she is. And with the 2 health bars and her self-heals, she's definitely not too squishy. It just goes to show how fun it is that I want to be stuck on it. Why did it have to be Savage Beastfly and Groal that took the longest? Honestly, number 2 and number 1 could have gone either way, and it still might change over time as I get better at Lost Lace, who is currently number 2. And that's because I haven't quite reached that state where the fight can just flow perfectly. Even after beating her, I still keep getting my shit handed to me. She's a culmination of the humanoid-like duels and overlapping mechanics, and it's a beautiful, beautiful marriage. She takes all the best things about her previous fights, like the 2 different parry counters, quick pace, yada yada, and combines them with the best of the Abyss abilities of Act 3. Plus, she now has more mix-ups than possibly all other bosses, cancelling existing combos into void tendrils, doing 2 charges before ending with a random finisher, and then mixing and matching all her toolkit with area denial galore in phase 2 onwards. I am very impressed by just how well they complement hers, and while I've heard some people express annoyance at her ambushing you from the cover of void tendrils, I've never really felt like I couldn't react to what she was doing. On the contrary, I've been awarded more similar moments of extreme hype when I managed to dodge a tricky combination that made the First Sinner so cool to me. She quite literally has good flow as void waves come crashing through the arena, which are easiest to dodge at the corners, so you've gotta run back and forth, and I feel it's a nice way to involve the fast running speed of Hornet into a fight. By the end of the numerous phases, Lace ends up having more attacks than any boss in either of the 2 games, and you having survived a lengthy amount of time to that point, and the music selling the feeling of finality, it is a fantastic true final boss, more than making up for what Grandmother Silk lacked. But I gotta stick to my gut feeling of Flow being king, and it's not even close, it is at its absolute best in the dance with Scar singer Carmelita. Sure, her gang of goonies at the start is a little unnecessary, but it's fine. At least she has unique bodyguards you don't see elsewhere, and I don't mind fighting them while listening to her beautiful singing. When she enters the stage, she has a melee combo, a spin, some blade throws that arc in a similar way to Moorwing, and a jump slam that erupts spikes. That's not a crazy toolkit, but wait till you see what she does with it all. I think arena design is kind of an underappreciated element in these fights. I feel Team Cherry knows when to keep it wide open and when to close it in. And for Carmelita, a relatively small space is perfect. Being sometimes backed into a corner can really vary up how you dodge her attacks, which is where so much of variety comes from when it isn't in her moveset pool. Phase 2 she'll introduce a full arena length charge that erupts spikes, and more optional blade throw follow-ups. You better learn quick, because when she puts you to the true test in the last stretch of the fight, the real wickedness in her design is exposed. Are you ready? Her entire final phase is one combo. She has no fucking pause. Like, ever. At all. Every attack leads into the next one, which is crazy when she can vary up how many times she throws her blades and starts an attack while spikes or blades from the previous are still up. It's both an endless mix-up game and one single combo, and it is the most fucked up and awesome case of non-stop flow I've ever seen. It is addicting as fuck. It gives so much room for player expression from how you keep up with her pace, as you have all the movement tools at your disposal by this point, and I just adore it. She's clearly a fan favorite, so I don't think I'm gonna be in hot waters for this one, but I'm sure I had many less popular takes throughout the video, so go ahead and let me know what you thought in the comments and on my Discord. I'm again super happy with SILKSONG. It's one of the most gorgeous looking games. It's got top-notch exploration, music, combat, enemy variety, and bosses. It's very rare a game this long anticipated wouldn't disappoint the unrealistically high expectations, but I guess they were realistic in the end. I might be ranking the areas next time, but until then, check out my other videos like the top 10 hardest bosses or my old crappy Hollow Knight area ranking. Thanks for watching,